Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Isabeau Maxwell here with me on the show. Beau is a skeptic turned medium, as well as founder of the Sage Method, which is designed to help people enhance their intuitive abilities. Hello, Beau. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hello, my friend. Thank you for having me.
I am looking forward to this. It is always exciting to have someone on who has, intuitive or medium abilities. It's just and of course, I'm sure you would agree, we all have it to varying degrees, and some, just like, the way I always put it with intuition or psychic ability is like, look, everyone's got it to some degree, and something that you can work on to enhance. And then there's some people that, just like we can all shoot a basketball and make one from time to time. And then there are those that were born to be, Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, and just like the superstars of the sport, if you will. So, I'm curious what you think about that, and if you agree with my perspective.
It's an interesting answer that I do and I don't. So for me, I see it. I love your example. It's such a great example. They came down here to do that. Do you know what I mean? That they came in here with the intent of, this is how I'm going to, unfold my career and my life. But the other side of that coin here, so that's the yes part. The no part would be, they focus on it every day. They started young. It's, and when you focus on it that much for that long, and that's really what your career is, they're going to be outstanding. And that's what I've seen with students across the years, is the more time you put into it, the stronger it becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what I was attempting to say, is like, look, if you work on it, it's going to grow like anything. And then you also have the people who are just so naturally inclined that are going to have, like, and then if they work on it, their enhancement is even, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but if me and, Michael Jordan both worked on our basketball skills simultaneously, he would have still, had me beat in most of our one-on-one games.
Exactly. And I think intuition is a great descriptor in this area, because are you here? Is one of your reasons to be here to use it to help others? Or is it to use it for your own personal guidance in its natural state? I think that's the difference between you and Jordan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, we got right in there. Anyway, I'd like to back up and not overshadow my cliche opener question. And it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
My passion is to bring intuition into this world as something that is natural for everyone.
Cool. Well, if you would, give us a little bit of backstory on how you got on this path, and, whatever feels relevant to share about your journey leading to this, interesting and unique work.
My backstory is, it's kind of, to me, it's fun because I can very easily say there's no way I would have seen myself here. That interview question, where do you see yourself in 10 years? No way.
Yeah, right.
I was a complete skeptic. I was a math major in college. I built businesses. It was 1+1 is 2, and anything other than that isn't real.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that was even my focus. I wasn't focused on being skeptic. That's just what was.
Yeah.
And my grandmother passed. She was in Minnesota. I was in New Hampshire. And shortly after she passed, she showed up in my living room in spirit form. And I got to tell you, that was a life-changing day.
Wow.
It was
bet.
challenging, frightening, hopeful, confusing, all at once, all in the matter of probably 3 seconds. And because I was so close to her, she was very maternal for me. I wanted to connect with her. I really wanted to. And so out of that desire to have her back, really out of grief, I explored the possibility. And I remember I sat there thinking, who is in the spiritual world that I know? And the only person I knew was a Tai Chi instructor. And we weren't even close. I just knew of him. And I remember going to him saying, okay, you're the weirdest person I know. Can you help me? And I mean, that's how far out of the spiritual world I was. He was just the kindest man and helped me learn how to do yes and no intuition, which is just so foundational. And through that, I was able to communicate with her. It took months, but eventually the proof started to show up that was undeniable. And then there was no looking back. Do you know what I mean? It was a whole second life, I guess.
Wow. Yeah. For her to appear physically to you is about as dramatic as it gets, right?
Yeah. And, I'm a Taurus, so I get it. You gotta bring it home if I'm going to pay attention. Yeah. And it was, people ask, some detailed questions around it. And the answers are usually, she was about 10 feet away from me. She was in the middle of the living room. She was about 70% solid. And that was striking because even to this day, I don't see spirits 70% solid all the time.
Wow. Wow. So when you 70% solid, 10 feet away, was she just a visual, on her, or was she then also communicating?
The only thing she did, she was standing sideways. Mm-hmm. She turned over her right shoulder to look at me, and she winked and smiled and then disappeared.
Wow.
And, she's cheeky, so I get it.
Yeah.
But it's these little intricate things like sideways. Why were you standing? So these little things kind of conflicted with my doubt.
Yeah.
If I would have made that up, she would have been facing me. Or do you know what I mean? And this was what was really striking, is that my husband at the time woke up the next day. I didn't say anything because, that's just crazy. So I didn't say anything to anyone. And my husband woke up the next morning and told me, I had the strangest dream, so realistic. I saw your grandma and she was wearing that blue button down short sleeve shirt. And I don't know why, but I just kept staring at that shirt. And I was sitting there listening to him, stunned, because that's what she was wearing when she showed up in the living room the night before.
Wow.
And that was enough to tip me over and say, okay, this might be real, you know? And it was a few months in, and people ask about the proof. So for someone who is a skeptic, Taurus, type A driven, science-minded sort of person, what level of proof really tipped the scales for you? And for me, it was, I had learned from that Tai Chi instructor, again, such a wonderful man, the yes and no's through pendulum work, through swinging one way is a yes, swinging the other is a no.
Ooh, and I just got chills because someone just taught this to me on Saturday. I've never done it, never been exposed to it. And I literally just did yes, no pendulum intuitive exercise on Saturday for the first time.
I love this.
And Brandon, we're recording this on Monday, everyone. So this is 2 days ago.
Everything always works out like this. I mean, the synchronicities of this lifestyle and the spiritual path, it's not even a lifestyle, but the spiritual path synchronicities are so beautiful, aren't they?
It's wild. I mean, the amount of synchronicity that I have and I share on the show, it's like, I'm exposed to a lot of things, obviously, doing the show and talking to so many incredible people doing spiritual centric work. So you would think that yes, no pendulum technique is something that, I would have been exposed to. So we had an event at this co-living space, the Mystic Manor, that I manage, and we do an event from time to time. And we start with a yoga in the morning, then a conscious conversation circle, and then from that into a cacao ceremony. And as we made that transition out of the conscious conversation circle, a woman stepped up and kind of said, hey, I want to teach you guys. Oh, in the circle, she goes, I feel inspired to teach this intuitive, technique to you guys. And she's like, okay, everyone. And here we are, 50 of us or whatever, doing this technique. And it was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. I really like this, and it was completely random, unplanned for. It was, someone just stepped up and taught the group this technique.
And here we are. And now just a day or two later.
Yep. Or 48 hours later, like literally 48 hours ago, like I was learning it,
I love that. Yeah. Synchronicities are so much fun. And I'm definitely going to tell you the story of the pendulum with my grandmother, but just on the synchronicities sidetrack here. I mean, I'm traveling. I left Connecticut. I flew to Oregon. Sitting in the car, in the airport, waiting for traveling, I downloaded a photo of Crater Lake, which is in, the state of Oregon. And I thought, when I'm here on my trip, I want to drive on out to Crater Lake and see it. I've never seen it. Mm-hmm. And I land, I get a rental car, and the rental car's license plate's Connecticut. I get in, I go to use the maps on the in the dashboard of the car, and it said recent locations, Crater Lake. So whoever rented the car before me also went to Crater Lake. It's that kind of synchronicity that I tell people. When you really step into the flow of your spiritual path, it is that magical. It is that wonderful. Now, every day isn't that incredible, but it's almost where like you get used to it.
You really do.
48 hours later, Brandon's going to be talking to somebody who had a life-changing situation with this one technique that you just learned.
Right. Wow. And maybe would it make sense, all this considered, to share a little bit of how the technique works? I mean, is it, something that you can just sort of verbalize?
I think so. The technique really, and a lot of people have a different way of approaching it. So you should always stay open to making every technique really fit you the best. But pendulum for me works the best when you have an object that's heavy enough to hang on a string, like a necklace or a stone, a key, and you have the string about 5-6 inches. Some people like it a little bit longer, and you hold I want to call it a necklace because I want that visual. Do you know what I mean? And you hold it over your palm. With one hand, you're holding it, and it's hovering right above the palm of your other hand. And you ask for a yes, and it'll swing one way, and you ask for a no, and it'll swing a different way. This kind of sets the stage for your intuition to be able to deliver you yes and no questions.
Yeah.
People say, well, aren't you moving it? And one school of thought could be, nope, it's moving on its own. I've literally seen students hang it from a shelf, put their hand underneath it, and communicate. Wow. So I know that's possible. But the other school of thought is, your subconscious, nervous system is moving the string ever so slightly, so it does answer you. Yep. Either way, you can ask these yes and no questions. And going back to my opening, my spiritual awakening, my grandmother showed up, and a few months later, I'm doing these yes and no questions with a pendulum. And I remember Brandon saying, okay, Grandma, I'm raising 2 kids. I'm struggling with, like, is this real? I really need some serious proof here, hon, because I gotta know that this isn't grief. And I was running errands, and I felt that wave, that surge of goosebumps that runs through you. And I knew she was near me. And I saw her clearly the first time. After that, it was pretty much goosebumps. I didn't continue to see her for a while. So that was my communication. And I pulled over, was in a parking lot. I did the good old 20 questions game that we learned as a kid to try to narrow it down, because it takes a little bit to get an answer when you can only ask yes and no, but it still works.
Yeah, right.
And I got it down to the facts of my mom was going to have a financial issue, that she would call me for help, but that I wouldn't be able to help, or that I wouldn't need to help her because a friend of hers would help her instead. And I was like, this is detailed enough that when it doesn't come true, I can go see a therapist, get some help, and get back to my life.
Right.
And I don't recall, maybe an hour or two later in the day, my mom called and she was making a banking transfer. And she said, I'm having issues with my bank. I need cash in my bank for 24 hours. And then can you put some cash in, and then I'll give you the cash back tomorrow, and then I can get this transfer done. I said, absolutely, sure. Went to my bank, got the cash, and I was driving to her bank, and I thought, this is spooky, but this could be a coincidence. I'm still doing it. It's not a friend, it's me.
Right.
And I pulled into the other parking lot of her bank, because we had different banks. And she called back and she said, hey, hon, thank you so much for running, but don't worry about it. My friend Lisa helped me out, and it's all taken care of.
Wow.
And I never looked back. That was it. I probably sat in that bank parking lot for an hour, crying, laughing, just the entire world opened up, and I never looked back.
Wow. How cool. It's really something when you ask for signs and you get that answer in a dramatic way that just is a validation. That a lot of that happened for me early on in my journey too, and some big things in my life were asking for a sign and then getting it, and that's a very powerful technique. Interesting. I'll point out too with the pendulum technique that we were taught. I've actually heard of that one more. And instantly made me think of, I have my book is called The Golden Key, and we have physical golden keys that people can get if they're so inspired to do so. And so I instantly thought of myself, oh, I want to try it with with one of the golden keys, or listeners out there who have them can do the same thing. But we actually tried it in that circle, maybe because it was outside. Because I think your technique is even probably more popular approach, but with our actual bodies, like, yes is leaning one way. Like, ask something that's a yes and a no that the answer to decide what, no, I leaned backwards. Yes, I leaned forward very subtly. And then it's like, okay, now you have your guidance of what means what. Now start asking other questions and just, using your body as the pendulum, which, is pretty cool too if you don't have something, handy.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, let's talk. So you got your proof, you started down the path, and then now, how part of, how regular a part of your life is tapping into spirit and, doing readings for others, I'm assuming. Is this what you're doing all day, every day? Is it something that's, just kind of there for you? What is your mediumship? What is it developed into?
It has developed over the years. And I would say the first year and a half was me just trying to figure all of it out. And I met my first spirit guide. His name was Big Dog. And I now know about spirit guides. And and he didn't look at me and say, my name's Big Dog. I just remember looking at him saying, I want to call you Big Dog, because he was just so big. Do you know? It was like bigger than life kind of feeling. And he chuckled and said, that's fine. And I learned from him about spirit guides. I didn't even know there were spirit guides. I didn't understand anything. And he taught me so much. And I worked with him for about a year before I started to go out in the public and do readings. So he helped me go from goosebumps, yes and no, to be able to have open, a hearing and seeing of my intuitive abilities. And I then went out and did the only thing I knew, which was to go out and do readings. So I did that. And I worked for a number of years as a professional reader and started to do speaking engagements. And that's when Big Dog told me, it was probably like the second or third year in, to teach people the sage. There wasn't a name for it at the time, but he said, I want you to teach people the same formula I taught you. And it was really funny, Brandon, because I was like, what formula? Like, I didn't even realize I was walking through it. Yeah. And he said, go back into our journals. look at everything that you've done, and I want you to have other people do that. So I've been teaching this formula, this method to open your intuition since then. I mean, like
Wow.
15 years or so. And it's been fantastic. So I was doing readings. I was teaching people the Sage method, walking them through that. And I've graduated a bunch of other readers out into the world, which just is awesome.
Cool.
And now there's so much teaching to do. And there's so much clearing work, because I do spiritual clearings of homes, land, businesses, buildings, things like that as well, that unfortunately I don't have the time to do readings anymore. But thanks to the Sage method, we've got a lot of amazing readers now.
Here's another great synchronicity. So, as I mentioned, I run this co-living space in Los Angeles, and we just had a definite challenging individual leave. Our event was 2 days ago, so they left 3 days ago. And there has been more sage burned in this house in the last 2 days. Even someone who came to the event on 2 days ago, where I learned this, they're like, yeah, the main thing, he makes these incredible rings, this artist named Patango, and if you look him up, mind-blowing stuff that he makes. And he's like, yeah, I was originally going to serve tea, and then I was like, oh, I'll just bring all my jewelry, like kind of as a second thought. And meanwhile, it's like the most amazing jaw-dropping stuff you've ever seen. And he's like, but the thing that I felt the most inspired to bring was all the sage. And so someone had not only saged the day before, but then he brought like a ton of sage and was just burning it the whole time. And then people were doing it at the door. There's more sage burned in the last 48 hours here than there has been in 2 years here, probably. So it's really funny as I think about that too. It's like, you just can't make this stuff up.
Yeah. It's just, I love the synchronicities.
Me too.
Absolutely love them. We're on the road right now, and we're traveling in an RV. We stayed at a fairgrounds that was off season. And when you park an RV in a fairgrounds off season, it's very peaceful. It's very open, very quiet. There's nothing going on short of a few dog walkers. And the week before, I had mentioned to my partner, I've heard about axe throwing, and I really want to do it. It sounds really fun. I've never thrown an axe. And there's these locations where they've kind of turned, dartboards into axe boards. And I'm very excited. I'm like, I got to do this. And he said, okay. I said, let's start looking for locations. He said, okay. And we're at this fairground. It's like morning, the third morning that we're there. And I wake up and my partner says, you're not going to believe this, but the farmer's market just showed up in the fairground here, and they have a mobile axe throwing unit. Would you like to go axe throwing? And I was like, yeah, I really would.
Right outside the RV door. Yeah.
Right outside.
It came to you.
So you throw on your sandals, you grab your coffee, and you stroll on over and throw some axes, and then you come back and have some breakfast. When you live a life like this, when you put your spiritual path in front of you, and it's not even that hard. I tell people a few minutes of acknowledgement a day that you're a spiritual being having this human experience, and you start to have more and more and more of these synchronicities. When you're in the flow, the synchronicities are abundant. When you're out of the flow, it just feels very quiet. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, what a trip. The other thing that I had happen the other day was I have a dear friend she's been having a lot of opening up, communicating with her guides, and being led to do healings on people, like communicating with spirit. And not necessarily, I don't know if she's had an experience yet as in a medium kind of way, but more like, guides that are showing up for her. And the other night, I was spending some time with her, and she started having visions and like tapping in like, oh, wow, there's like an angelic entity I'm seeing. And then she's like, hold on, this is actually your higher self. And so she's like tapping into my higher self and just kind of marveling at, the interaction and what she was seeing. And so I'm curious if that's something that ever happens to you. I know it all kind of can start to blend from guides to, the grandmother that comes through to, if you ever have the experience of also tapping into someone's higher self and sort of, communicating with another layer of the physical human.
Oh, I think that leads to really an interesting discussion around how everyone's intuition is so different. We all really can access, all aspects of intuition, animal communication, higher self, higher beings, mediumship versus psychic energy. And we can all access all of it, but each of us are going to have our own strengths. And I see a lot of people hit roadblocks. They hit these walls when they try to use their intuition the same way someone else is. And they don't even know that that's going to be a roadblock, but then they think, well, why can't I open up like that person does? Because your intuition is completely different than that person's. And your friend, Brandon, what handles this is she's doing it perfectly. She's doing exactly what I teach my students to do. Stay open. Stay open to however it comes through. And when you do that, your strength will start to speak. Your strength and your intuition will literally say, yes, awesome, good. I'm going to come through and see this. So one of her strengths might be to communicate with your higher self, whereas someone else's strength might be to communicate with your grandmother or grandfather. Or there's readers that are strong communicating with guides versus personal psychic energy, being able to just read source and universal energies. So it's different for every single person. I haven't had a one-on-one with someone's higher self. Mm-hmm. My strength is more communicating with guides and loved ones,
right?
For the sitter that I'm communicating with. I joke a little bit because when it comes to psychic and medium, everyone falls somewhere on the range, on that line. Either you're very, very psychic, or you're very, very medium, or you're somewhere in between. I joke that the lucky ones are somewhere in between. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, I lean really far over toward the mediumship. So if I lose my keys, I can't just close my eyes like a psychic would and just try to locate them. For me, it's I need to communicate with a guide or someone in spirit form to say, hey, do you know where my keys are?
Right. Yeah, really interesting. And I think that's an important thing to point out that, we are all completely unique emanations of source. And therefore, that spiritual side of ourselves, in my case, I'm not having a lot of, I've never seen an apparition, let's say, or non-physical entity appear in my living room or communicated with what I feel is extraterrestrials or, people have that sort of thing. But for me, I definitely intuition can be strong, and the amount of sort of spiritual breadcrumbs and level of synchronicity that I experience seems to be sort of on a level I haven't seen too many other people have, and so it's really strong in the signs or, things that happen for me just can be really jaw dropping.
Yeah. And the synchronicities, I think synchronicities, while they're not necessarily different from intuition, they have a little bit of their own category in that the more deep you are on your spiritual path, the more you're aware of your energetic body, of, the flow of your spiritual body, the more the synchronicities become apparent to you and show up. People usually start with the, common numbers, the 1111, 222, those types of things. They start to catch those. That's usually a sign that you're stepping into some, stronger synchronicities. And that really I see as a direct reflection of raising your vibration. I mean, Brandon, you've been raising your vibration. And when you do that, you become aware more of really what's between the molecules versus the solid molecules. And that's where the synchronicities can really speak to you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So for those who are newer on this path or I'm not having, I have people say it to me all the time. I don't know. How do I get to have all the synchronicities that you're having? Or in your case, how do I, converse as a medium? And of course you have your teachings to help with that. But, what are some of the ways that just anyone, aside from signing up for courses or anything can become more confident and hone their intuitive abilities?
Well, first and foremost, before anything else, we really need to take care of our energetic body. And
Yeah.
if someone says, what's the one thing, like you're saying, one thing, what's one thing, it would be that we are taught to take care of our physical body, throughout our lifetimes. We wear clothing. I mean, you shower, you take care of it, you eat right, all that type of stuff, but we don't acknowledge our energetic body on a daily basis. And the energetic body, if you're familiar with Reiki or acupuncture, anything like this, they're all talking about the same thing. When it comes to taking care of that energetic body, just acknowledging what's coming in and filtering what's coming in, not collecting all of that negative energy from, I don't know, the neighbor or the person at the grocery store, the energy that you're picking up that really doesn't serve you on your path. Just by doing that, you become lighter. You become more clear. You see more, you feel more, you experience more. And so it's fantastic to say to your guides, hey, show me a sign, but it's even better to be like, my energetic body is balanced, cleaned out. I can see the sign easily now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Is there a particular technique that you would, that comes to mind for someone, taking care of their energetic body or projecting their energetic body, that's relatively simple and sort of fundamental?
Oh yeah, hands down. And I could talk for an hour and a half on instruction on it because I'm so passionate about it. But the technique that was given to me by Big Dog and that I've shared for so many years now is GCP, which is ground, clear, protect. And a lot of people have used one element or two elements, but it's the flow of those three elements in order that really set the stage for being able to create a filter. And the grounding, in essence, like I said, I could, they can go to my website. There's tons of instruction on this that's available for free, available to the general public, because I think everyone should do this and know this. But grounding is exactly what we've learned in the spiritual realms. Ask Mother Earth to ground you, anchor in. Imagine your feet becoming, tree roots and anchoring and holding into the earth. Imagine a rope around your waist that goes down to the earth to anchor you and hold you firmly to Mother Earth. And then step two, once you're grounded, clear out the energy that no longer serves you. And specifically the energy that's not on your path, meaning the excess that's just not important for your growth. And then lastly, a protective, like a bubble, put a bubble around yourself. And know that that isn't necessarily like an isolating protection. It's more of a filtration system to say that which is supposed to be on my path comes in, that which is not stays out. And this is the act of taking care of your energetic body. And here's one of my favorite things about this. There's a lot. The synchronicities start to increase. Your vibration raises. The negative coworkers, quit complaining to you, the positivity starts to increase. But one of the things I love about this so much, in addition to just being a game changer for life in general, is that your manifesting improves. Because in essence, when we're trying to manifest, we're trying to bring about more of which is already in our system. We're thinking about that, bringing in the love of our life or bringing in that new home or something like this. But we bring in more of what's already within us. So we're attracting, it's that like attracts like. And when you've cleared out that energetic body, cleaned it up, put that filter up there and said, only that for my highest good. Now you're not manifesting through a bunch of junk and baggage. You're manifesting through a higher vibration.
Yeah. It's more intentional.
I could go on and on about this.
Yeah,
It's such a game changer. And, I've always taught this no cost free for anyone that I can teach it to, because it's the key.
Yeah. Yeah. And, in your experiences doing this, like, in facilitating clearings or helping people, I'm assuming you've just seen like some pretty incredible results.
Yeah. It's been stunning. What's really fun is when I first taught the Sage method back in, trying to remember, 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. I taught it in person, and it's a 7-week course. And, it really is mind, body, and spirit. And the first few weeks is focused on mind, and then body, and then spirit. And to watch students graduate in that last week, there are a few really in-depth, fun psychic and mediumship experiments at the end of the course. And to witness students be able to, really pull on their intuition and have amazing hits and amazing information come through it, and just to be able to see that they can do what they thought they could never do before, it fills me up. And there was no going back. I was like, this is such a great life, to be able to watch people really widen and open up their intuition to where they get such accuracy that they blow themselves away. And now they've got this guidance tool for the rest of their lives. I had this one gentleman, he's a police officer, he's one of my favorite students. This was back in the early years, I think around 2009. And he walked into the classroom the first week, and very much not my demographic. We are open to all, but he was just this 6'4", big, tall, police officer. And I said, so what are you looking for in the course? And he said, I've lived a life of negativity. I'm done. And I said, okay. And he really dove in. He really dove into the course after 7 weeks, just this amazing transformation. And I remember he reached out to me months later and said, I've done it. I've quit my job, moved to Hawaii. I was welcomed there, and I've been able to meet the kahunas and start living this spiritual path. And he brought his whole family. And I don't know, that one always stuck with me, because it was someone that said, I'm done. I am done with negativity. And he didn't do the quick fix. He got under his belt what he needed to get under his belt. And then he made his changes in life. And he's just one of many.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's definitely the type of thing that I know spurs you on to continue and continue to motivate you to do the work that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the passion is.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I love that. I love the pendulum approach. That's such a nice share for people, simple, and then the ground clear, protect. What a great way to sort of, set yourself up for success, if you will. Is there any particular tidbits or guidance that you would provide for someone who wants to start? I know I hear a lot, people wanting to connect with their spirit guides and get that guidance. Is there any particular, sort of, well, here's one thing that I'll throw out, ideas for that.
For me, there's a lot of techniques that a lot of people use. So in this situation, I would offer the technique that I've seen the largest percentage of students have success with. So, because every technique, you're going to have some people that it works really great, and some people it's like, this one doesn't work so well for me. But the technique that I've seen the largest percentage of success with when it comes to guide communication is, it's 2 parts. One is commitment, daily, not once a week, not once a month, but daily, 5 minutes a day. That commitment piece is really, really vital to this. But the second part is sit about 3 or 4 feet away from a blank wall and allow your gaze to fall somewhere between you and the wall, meaning it's a defocusing exercise.
Sure.
Where you're letting go of this material reality. We want so much to see or feel or hear, but many times we don't acknowledge that which we want to see, feel, or hear is not in the material world. It's not in the solid. It's not in the agreed upon reality. So when it comes to intuition, being able to disconnect from the agreed upon reality is everything. So for guides, I would say it's that commitment piece for communicating, being able to see, feel, and hear in between the molecules away from this agreed upon reality, that which we're all searching to feel and experience is a matter of defocusing. Notice any really good reader. And I love saying this because people are like, I didn't notice that before you said it. Now you're going to notice it. When you see a really good reader who's doing a reading, they're always defocused. They're always staring off into a space, or I always look toward the ground and then allow my gaze to land somewhere between me and the floor. What I'm doing is saying that what I'm looking for is not in the solid. And that's the best way to reach your guides. Daily, 5 minutes a day, defocus, let your gaze soften. And lastly, be open to however they communicate with you. And don't be disappointed if it doesn't happen for the first few days. They want to know that you're committed. People say, well, why can't I just access them? They're working. They're a team. They're suited up. They're punched in the clock. They're working for you. And it's kind of like the visual I get is, being a kid and pounding on that teacher's lounge door and being like, hey, I want in. And it's like, okay, do you want to be on the team, or do you just want to know, if your house is going to sell? So that's sort of the thing. If you want to be on the team, if you want to know what's best for your higher path, tell me what I need to know. That should be your favorite sentence, Brandon, is tell me what you want me to know. Tell me, guides, you let me know what's most important for me to know. And when you do that, you'll start to hear them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a wonderful, wonderful piece of advice and technique that seems very manageable, 5 minutes a day. And thank you for that share.
Oh, yeah.
So, let's talk for a little bit, if you would, about the difference between imagination and intuition. I think that's one that sometimes is challenging for people is, hold on, am I just making this up, or is it coming from, some other part of myself or my guides or, higher self or what have you? And I'm curious how you discern.
Oh, that's a huge one. It's huge. I don't know a single person that I've met. I've taught thousands and thousands of students. I don't know a single person that said, oh yeah, I got no problem with that.
Yeah.
It's universal. And if you as a listener are experiencing it, you are not alone. Intuition and imagination really flow through the same, source channels. It's really a very subtle difference between push and pull. And for many, it's found in a practice. Some people do journey work where they go, they work with shamans and do journey work and go into the lower world, and then they can feel the push and pull down there. I personally was given meditations from my guides, which I did record, and I do give them in the Sage Method. People have the meditations. They're also available to the public. They're called Discovery Meditations. And they're guided meditations where you allow yourself to use your intuition. Now, this is something that someone can create on their own. I just recorded them because a lot of people are like, I don't want to create it on my own. Just, let me listen to it. But allow yourself to create with your imagination a scene, and then give yourself that moment where you just let go to see what intuition does. And then rinse and repeat. You'll start to feel the pull and the push and the push and the pull and the push and the pull. The pushing is you using your imagination, setting up the field, imagining some deers over in the corner, or some deer over in the corner, and a bird flies over you. And you're pushing the scene into your mind. That's imagination. Then if you allow yourself to pause to see if intuition can come in and speak, you'll feel the pull. I'm just remembered one student, we were doing this together in a group, and this is my favorite example. She used her imagination. I probably remember this because of the setting I just created. She said, I created a field, saw some animals in the distance, and then I just paused and said to my intuition, if you have anything to say, please say it, as she stood in this beautiful field she created with her imagination. And all of a sudden, a 10-foot vegetable sandwich fell from the sky and landed in front of her. And she went, whoa, did not feel that, expect that one. So it was almost like her intuition going, yep, I'm going to show you the difference. I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to come out of left field. You're not going to expect it. And then I had to ask, I'm like, what does the sandwich mean? She said, I've been trying to go vegan. And I'm like, got it. Okay. Got it. So it's a very subtle thing. It does take time. You have to give yourself patience, but any chance you can put yourself into that space of pushing and then releasing and pushing and then releasing, your imagination will open the door for intuition, and you'll know that it's intuition because you will be a passenger in that car. So you drive the car just far enough with your imagination, and then allow yourself to be a passenger and see what happens. Do that over and over and over. And in time, you'll know when you're pushing or when you're allowing it to pull you.
Very, very cool. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's subtle though, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Even professional readers, I've had times where when your human life is heavy, and not even negative heavy, it can be positive heavy. I'm about to go, my son's about to get married. So I'm like knee deep in this human experience right now. Right. So it's a little harder to access the intuition. Even it doesn't matter how long you've been using your intuition, you're still going to have moments where you're like, did I make that up? Now, those moments will happen less and less and less in time. Yeah. But in those situations, if you have enough experience under your belt of having and feeling and knowing that feel of intuition, I tell people another technique is just to wipe the slate clean. If you see something, you're not sure if you made it up, wipe the slate clean and see if it shows up again. If it doesn't, it was probably your imagination. But if it persists, it's your intuition really trying to get some messages to you.
Right. And like anything, the more you're working at this stuff, as you're working that muscle, the stronger it gets, the more you can read those subtle differences and subtle energies, right?
Yeah, the more you walk, the easier it is to walk. I mean, it's, if you're sitting still and you're not doing anything and you get up to walk, it can be a little difficult to walk. But if you walk daily, it becomes a natural part of your existence. And, you don't, and I like that example because people don't, especially when you're younger, you don't think about what it would be like to have difficulty walking unless you have, a disability of some sort, because it's just such a natural part of what you do. Yeah. And then you get older and you realize, I'm sitting more, I'm not using my body as much. And so now I can feel this, and it becomes apparent. That's sort of what intuition is. If you're using it all the time, then it becomes a natural part of your life and your flow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Makes so much sense. So, one of the things that I love to get on the show, and we've sort of had some naturally occurring stories of synchronicity already, but I love to, just story time in general. Stories of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story or, something, pertaining to, intuitive, insight coming through in dramatic fashion. Love to hear any, fun, story time, story or stories that you feel inspired to share.
Oh, there's so many. It's
so almost always the problem with the question, like, hold on, which, where do I go?
Actually, so one of my favorite stories that pops up, I'm going to segue into spiritual clearings. And that for me, my public job, my human job is to teach people to hone their intuition, to really sort of bring intuition into the mainstream, because that's where it really should be. But spiritually, I also have a calling of doing clearing work, where if spirits become stuck in the in-between in their transition to the other side after death, it's my job to assist them in helping them to continue on their transition so they can cross over. And I've run into so many fun experiences in those realms with just the variety of people that you run into in the variety of situations. And the clearings, I think, it hit home for me the most. And one of my favorites, which really speaks to, how do I want to say this? The culture, really by no one's fault, has leaned a little bit into dehumanizing spirits. And what I mean by that is, while there are these really amazing ghost shows and paranormal shows, which I mean, I love myself, we tend to have now a first reaction of a spiritual experience by labeling it a ghost versus labeling it a person or an actual spirit. And we've lost that connection to these sounds that we're hearing, or this, interactions, paranormal moment we had is a person. And we've lost that a little bit. Like I said, no one's really at fault by this, but that's a little bit of the direction. So one of the clearings I did that really drove this home for me was I went out to someone's home. They said, we're really frightened. We hear footsteps on the stairs, and every now and then we'll wake up and our kitchen cabinets are open. So I went to their home, and again, this is one of my favorite jobs, is spiritual clearings. And this older woman came through in spirit form, and she was like, I'm just trying to stop her from changing my recipe. And it ended up being that this was this woman's aunt who was on the other side. And I said, any chance you've been baking a pie recipe from your aunt? And she said, yeah, I've done that a few times. I said, any chance it's the next morning baking that pie that the cabinet doors are open? And she's like, oh my goodness, yes. And I said, okay, you changed the recipe, didn't you? And she just put her head in her hands. She's like, I can't believe this. I'm like, your aunt is literally coming down here trying to get your attention because you changed your recipe and you weren't supposed to do that.
That's
and
so
he
funny.
just laughed, because it went from this, I'm haunted, there's this killer ghost that's scaring all of us, to seriously, this is Aunt Marge. And she's just kind of mad, like that. Yeah, like changed her. She wasn't mad, but she was trying to guide her on the recipe. Do you know what I mean? So it's a lighthearted story, but the truth is that every single one of these ghosts, every single one of these spirits is someone's aunt, someone's mom, someone's kid. Yeah. And that's a real big piece for me.
That's hilarious. I love that. I love to bring levity to it all, because it can be so intense sometimes. And, people then bring fear into it. And really it's, if you think about it, it's the aunt just without the physical body. So no less scary than the aunt with the physical body, right?
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, there are situations where paranormal activity is not a good thing. I get that. I've been to them. That's my job. I'm professional at clearing, but the percentage is small. And so I would love to invite, our culture into perhaps not first fearing it, perhaps first saying, Aunt Marge, is that you?
Yeah. Right.
And imagine, Brandon, how much more connectiveness and bliss can come into everyone's lives by being open to that in that way, instead of shutting the door out of fear. Yeah.
Right. And, it's funny because my son has had a few experiences where he feels like he's seen astrally or non-physical. And it's happened a couple times to him where it's like in the corners of the room where it's like, looks like spider webs and spiders kind of thing. And so, and then he's looking it up, and it's talking about like the sort of these like parasitic sort of entities that can, appear and be there and just beyond the physical dimension. So I'm curious if you've had any, because that's something that just happened to him a few years ago, and then it just happened again a few days ago. So I'm curious if you've ever had any sort of experience like that with like, non-physical insect kind of creatures.
Actually, I have. And what's really interesting too is I think this might speak to it. Every situation is very different. So we don't know exactly what your son is going through, but it could also be that the symbolism of spider, which is creativity and writing and spinning of that.
He's a writer. He's a writer. He's a hardcore of a writer as you could be. Okay, he's writing his first like novel, and he went to school as a creative writer. So that's really interesting.
Okay. So here's what I'm talking about with the culture is that we see spider, we see activity that is not what we see in our day-to-day solid environment. And the fear kicks in first. But here's what's really exciting about this is that as we can raise this awareness of the the humanizing of spirits and the humanizing of this experience, this is most likely I wish he could be excited at the fact that his guide is probably coming through. He probably has a spider as a guide, and every good writer should. But culture has created it as this fearful thing. So my interaction with one, I remember this, and I love when they sound bizarre, but that these experiences do. And it was like a 12-foot long beetle that came through the ceiling of my bedroom. And I was laying on my bed looking upward and thought, well, number one, I'm in a horror story. Number two, I'm going to die. Like that was my first. And this was years and years ago when I first opened up. It was like, shut this down, shut this down, shut this down. This is ridiculous. No, I don't like this. But it turned out that was spirit energy coming through. I didn't have a little bit of beetle spiritual energy coming through. I had massive amounts of it coming through. And once I learned about that and learned what beetle meant and how to utilize that energy, it just like opened up doors on my path, which is what's happening most likely for your son with this spider energy. But we've got all these haunted stories and these scary movies in our head, and those are what speak first. So I say that I'm actually excited for your son.
Wow. That's exciting because he is extremely talented. I mean, obviously coming from his father, it's like, but he very, very, I mean, when he was, in third grade, his teacher came to me and was like, oh my gosh, you've got to put this kid in the School of the Arts, which he ended up going 2 years later. She's like, I thought he was plagiarizing as a third grader. I thought some adult wrote this, and I've never seen a kid as gifted as this for writing. You're crazy not to pursue this. And so I did because of that. And he went on and, went to a wonderful school where, he was in the writing curriculum, and now he's writing, his first novel and just did his first short film, just shot that he wrote as well. And so, very interesting.
I would have to lean on the whole spider energies being an absolutely incredible, wonderful thing. And I think what we're doing right now is we're talking about the WebMD of spirituality. You jump online and it's like parasitic beings. That's like 0.5% chance. I've been doing spiritual clearings for years. I have gone into locations that other people didn't even want to step into. I have done really intense removals and land clearings, and I've cleared buildings with hundreds of spirits. And I'm only saying this to drive the point home that it's not what I read, it's what I've experienced 90% of the time, if not more. It's love. And it's positivity. And it's very rare that it's parasitic energy that this one individual wrote about in a blog post one day.
Yeah, so right. That's what he came across too.
We lean toward the spook factor, and it's instead we need to turn and say, wait a minute, odds are good that this is positive. And once he does that and sees it again the next time, he'll see it in a different light.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Yeah. It's funny because it makes me think of it. My friend who's been on the show many times is a medium. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Colby Rebel. And she's really amazing. And I've seen her really hit some powerful things on the nose as far as predictions, but with some other friends. But I took him on his 18th birthday to meet with her, and she did a reading for him. And she's, she tapped into his guides, and she's like, wow, I've been doing readings for a long time. And this is the first time I've ever seen a celebrity spirit guide. She's like, Charlie Chaplin is his guide. And, and then he went on, now he just made his first short film, but writing is at the top of his highest excitement list as a very poetic, creative soul, So it's interesting because it made me think of that too, with the whole mediumship, because she's the person that I know the best who does your sort of work.
Exactly. Yeah. And look at this synchronicity. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, right.
All of this opens up, and now you're gonna have to get off of this podcast and give your son a call.
He texted me while we're talking, asking me,
I
hey,
have no doubt.
Yeah, texted me, don't forget to reach out. I have another friend, Shaman Durek, who, after he had this experience a few days ago, he's like, I want to talk to someone maybe like Durek or something, about my experience and see if I can get some clarity, because I feel like I'm opening up to see more of these realms and I want to know how to navigate it. So, really, he literally texted me while we were talking, don't forget to reach out today, and so it's just, you just can't make this stuff up the way it is all intertwined, and it's just fascinating. So I'm definitely going to make sure he listens to this, and who knows, maybe even he can do the SAGE method, and then we can report back to the listeners on how that went and everything, and continue. That's the one great thing about doing 5 episodes a week on my show. People get to follow whether they want to or not. I guess they opt in to every little detail of my journey.
Really great idea. Let's have him do the SAGE method.
That would be wonderful. If you're open for it, I'd love to do it, and then just do a follow-up and maybe even bring him on, which I've been talking about doing for a long time, and he could share his wonderful. How exciting. Well, maybe this is a good time then to just tell people a little bit more how they could connect with you and participate in the SAGE method as well, if they feel inspired to do so, and just follow your work in general.
Everything really is located at thesagemethod.com. So THESAGE method, method.com. So I make sure to keep everything on there, including the free training on ground clearing and protecting, the guide communication. I actually have an hour-long training on there about imagination versus intuition. So I try to keep a lot of really helpful resources on there, in addition to there's a spiritual community and other more in-depth courses that are more specific, all the way up to the major teaching course, which is the SAGE method. Cool.
Beautiful. Yeah. And we'll keep you guys posted on Bradley, my son's journey with it. I have a feeling, due to the divine synchronistic timing of all this, he'll be over the moon excited to give it a try. He's such a student anyway, and loves to just study and learn. And so, we can report back and maybe even loop you back in on the conversation, Beau, if that aligns, and just,
that would be fun.
Let people take this journey as it sort of is naturally unfolded. And, the other thing that I think of, the day before all this went down, all these things have happened in the last few days. It's been, as we talked about before we even started recording, what an intense few days it's been around here. But I remember laying in bed with my partner and looking out on my balcony, and it was like just outside the door was the biggest spider. She was like, that is the biggest spider I've ever seen. And she turns 30 in a few weeks. So in 30 years, I've seen one probably that big, but it was massive. And the web was massive. And she's like, oh my gosh, look at it. It's like just above our sliding door, but outside, and you could see it with the sun shining. So it was like this huge thing. So, and my feeling was I didn't go kill it or get rid of it. Or it's like, oh, wow, it's beautiful. Like, it's out of the way. It's, I'm not going to, that's our neighbor, right? And so it was a very positive experience in that moment. It was no fear in it,
I also love the fact that you and I, our scheduling kind of fell, and then it went forward, and we landed on this day. And now I know why. Yep,
exactly. Such a beautiful dance that we're all doing. This has been so fun and enjoyable. I do have one final question for you, and this is my cliche closer. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Beau Maxwell?
The meaning of life is to have experiences on a linear timeline that you cannot on the other side.
Yeah, I love that. That's a cool. I get a lot of interesting answers. I haven't received that one, and I like that. I like that one a lot. Well done. I am so glad that we finally connected on this, Beau, and we'll keep you guys posted on Bradley's journey and how all that goes. And with that being said, thank you once again, Beau, for joining. It's been such a pleasure and honor. And
thank
all
you
of
for
you
having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of you out there listening, thank you for tuning your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts into another episode. Till next time, journey well. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can find the book and unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.